to do is this, and I'll read the amendment. Article 14 of the Constitution is amended in the following manner. By deletion of paragraph 1 goes away, what we just read, and the substitution of the following. A reference in this chapter to the father of a person born out of wedlock after the coming into operation of this paragraph means a male who satisfies any requirements as to proof of paternity as may be prescribed. So what happens here is the unwed mother is being taken out of Article 14, and father now will mean, if this succeeds, the male or a male who proves paternity. And this is what we were getting at earlier about the connection between these two bills. If Bill 1 fails, meaning that the definition of father remains as is in the Constitution and you don't add mother to it in Article 8, it means that this unwed mother no longer has a path over to Article 8 to stand as father. Again, that's a very, very critical issue. The other thing to really consider is that when you realize that the functional purpose of Bill 3 is to give citizenship to children born of foreign women, fathered not just by single Bahamian men, as Ms. Hunt said, could also be by a married Bahamian man who has that child adulterously with that foreign woman. So it's not confined. And this is why when you try to make the comparison that you're trying to give to Bahamian men, what women now have, it's not an equal comparison because you're moving from the unwed mother to a single Bahamian man and a married Bahamian man who fathers children out of wedlock with a foreign woman. I think that Bill 3 is a dangerous bill in a small country that has an illegal immigration problem. I have no doubt in my mind that should Bill 3 succeed, you will have foreign women seeking to be anchored in the Bahamas who would target Bahamian men to father children for them, with them. And I believe that the same environment that now encourages marriages of convenience will encourage babies of convenience to have this anchoring here. One of the things that was not answered by the other side is what does happen if Bill 3 succeeds and this child now, his father proves paternity for him, he is a Bahamian, but his mother has no status. What happens to the child? What happens to the mother? Are they both deported? And if we do that, then we're deporting Bahamian citizens. I don't think any of us will support that. Further, the other option would be, well, every foreign woman who has a child with a Bahamian man and paternity is proven, you allow them to stay in the country. Well, that's an immigration nightmare because we already have an issue with that. I believe a better option is to allow these children, and I think this is a classic example of what could have been done by Article 13, because unlike Bill 1, which is already touching the Constitution, and Bill 2, which is also touching the Constitution, Bill 3 is not touching the Constitution in terms of these children because there's nothing in there for them at the moment. This is a typical example where Parliament should exercise its right under Article 13 and allow these children at age 18 to apply and receive citizenship so long as they met the national security requirements. So I think that Bill 3 is a dangerously important bill that we need to consider and determine whether we want to import all of those uncertainties into our entrenched illegal immigration problem.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. For the sake of time, we have to move on to the last bill. Given that the last bill has probably been the most controversial over the last few months, we want to give this sufficient time. So, under the proposed change to the Constitution, it would be unlawful to discriminate based on sex, which would be defined as being male or female. Mr. Cartwright, would you please let us know what does the Constitution currently state? And perhaps Mr. Moss, you could sum this bill up and its implications in your own words.
Seeing as my legal acumen has been questioned, I'll read the words of Justice Michael Barnett. Currently, the law states that subject to the provisions of paragraphs 4, 5, and 9 of this article, no law shall make any provision which is discriminatory either of itself or in its effect. Subject to the provisions of paragraph 6, 9, and 10 of this article, no person shall be treated in discriminatory manner by any person acting by virtue of any written law or in the performance of the functions of any public office or any public authority. In this article, the expression discriminatory means affording different treatment to different persons attributable wholly or mainly to their respective descriptions by race, place of origin, political opinions, color, or creed, whereby persons of one such description are subjected to disabilities or restrictions to which persons of another such description are not made subject or are accorded privileges or advantages. The only thing that's about to change there is the inclusion of the word sex to that lineup, which would prevent government from ever passing any laws that discriminate against male or female.
Okay, what's the challenge with that?
Well, I wish it was as simple as Mr. Tenquest Cartwright, sorry. Tenquest Cartwright. Long Island, same thing.
All good people.
Yeah, all good people. Yeah, I wish it was that simple. What would happen is, at the moment, there are 5 attributes in Article 26, 3, on the basis of which we cannot discriminate. They are race, place of origin, political opinion, color, and creed. What Bill 4 is seeking to do is to add in that list sex. And I think we need to think about this, because what it means is this, and Mr. Cartwright was well in his right to read that very clear explanation from Mr. Michael Barnett. And one of the things that he said is you cannot use distinction in these attributes, meaning we would have to treat male and female in the exact same manner as we don't make distinctions between races. We don't make distinctions between people from Andros versus people from Bimini. We don't make any distinctions. So we would have to treat males and females in the exact same manner. That's problematic. It's problematic because though males and females are equal, they are different. And God-honoring societies recognize those differences, and they cater to those differences. The other issue, and I hope that we get to come back to that, but the other issue I'd raise is that if this, if Bill 4 succeeds, it will also affect persons and businesses who have licenses from the Bahamas government. This is Article 26.7 that deals with that. And then also persons who lease premises would also be affected by this if the bill succeeds as well. They will lose rights that they currently enjoy about how they rent their premises and to whom, and also business owners, especially in particular businesses, will lose certain rights that they currently enjoy in terms of how they give access to their premises and what they're allowed to take place on their premises. I think it should also be mentioned that there are 2 places where sex is going to be inserted. Sex will be inserted in 26.3 and also in 26.5. And currently in 26.5, what is interesting about this is that right now, as it relates to the disciplined forces, for example, when you insert sex in there alongside race and place of origin and political opinions, color, and creed, no government can say, we're not going to hire black people on the defense force or on one of the other forces. But right now, we have different qualification requirements for men and women on the defense force and on the police force. They run the mile in different times, they are required to lift different amounts of weight, and so forth. When you put sex in here, any male would be able to argue, I want to run the mile in 10 minutes too, like you let the women do. And so I think just making the point that what Mr. Cartwright said about it's as simple as that, it is not as simple as that.
Okay.
One second, before you go, Ms. Han, after you make your point, what I want afterwards is just for you guys to give us the bottom line on if I vote no, what would that mean? And if I vote yes, what would that mean?
Okay, well, before I get to that one, I just wanted to respond to Pastor Moss with his, particularly the points about Bill 4 being problematic because of persons leasing premises and persons being restricted who have businesses. That's not true. And Bill number 4 is not problematic at least not for that reason. Bill number 4 is attached to state action. It relates specifically to Parliament and the power that Parliament has with respect to making laws in the country. It's Article 26 in and of itself is not focused on individuals or fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. Article 26 in its totality addresses Parliament and the power Parliament has to make law. And the restriction on Parliament is, once this amendment is passed, that Parliament can no longer enact any law that discriminates on the basis of sex, meaning male or female. That Article 26 does not tell a landlord that they are not able to discriminate with respect to who they let into their place or who they don't. It does not, Article 26 does not deal with me as an individual making up my mind that I am not going to allow a particular tenant in my house or a particular business to operate out of my premises. Article 26 does not deal with that. So there's no change, and I think the word you used, it's problematic because of persons and businesses and leasing premises. That is not the case because Article 26 does not address that at all. What Article 26 and the proposed amendment does do, we say, and you to piggyback on what you said about the bottom line, is insert the word sex as one of the 5 that already exist, so it makes it the 6th one, the 6th ground upon which Parliament is unable to discriminate. And what will happen is that the word sex in this chapter means male and female. So what is happening with this amendment now is that although the word sex already exists in Article 15 of the Constitution, that word sex as it is not defined. It's actually, in my view, very wide open to interpretation as it currently exists in the Constitution. And so this amendment, by adding the qualifying words meaning male and female, is making it clearer for whenever the day will come that the rights or the term sex has to be fully defined in our Constitution by a court, or interpreted, I should say, not defined. Then there is a narrowing of the definition of sex in Article 2611, the new proposed 2611.
Okay.
Okay, if I may take a simple approach to respond to Ms. Hunt. Am I able to refuse to rent to black people?
Not under Article 26.
On what basis on what basis can I not, or can I not turn away black people?
Well, you are an individual and you can decide if you want to turn away black people if you
I'm
wish.
talking
No, I'm
legally.
saying
One
no,
at a
I'm
time,
saying-
one at a time.
I'm saying, right? I use myself as an example. I am a landlord, and if I am racist, biased, sexist, I can turn away whoever I wish from my premises. The remedy for that person who feels aggrieved is they can try to seek to make a claim against me that I'm discriminating against them in a civil action. But that right that they feel that they are aggrieved comes from the fundamental rights and freedoms provision, not Article 26.
Could you point us to it?
It starts in that same chapter 2.
Just to intercept a bit here, guests, you cannot respond directly to each
Sure.
other. You have to just address it indirectly.
Okay, so starting with Article 15, which is the first of Chapter 2, and I do have it here as well. But again, That is where the individual's right to be protected against discrimination comes from, beginning at Article 15 of the Constitution. Like I said, Article 26 deals specifically with Parliament, not our individual rights as individuals.
Okay. What I would say to what Mrs. Hunt is saying is that Article 15 bestows no rights. Ms. Hunt knows that. It declares rights. The rights are bestowed between Articles 16 and 27, I think, something like that.
The whole chapter, yes.
No, 15 bestows no rights. I would have thought Mrs. Hunt would have said that if there's someone who says, I'm not going to rent to people from Andros, or I'm not going to rent to people who are black or white, I thought that she would have referred to Article 26(7) that says, subject to the provisions of subparagraph 4E and of paragraph 9 of this article, no person shall be treated in a discriminatory manner in respect of access to any of the following places. Well, sorry, I should have gone up to...
Pastor Moss, can you sum up your answer, please?
Yeah, real quick. The point is this. Articles 26(7) and 26(8), they use the word discriminatory, and discriminatory is defined in 3, and it gives us the definition of that. So in the same way that you cannot say, we're not going to let black people into our apartment, is the same way that someone, once you add sex in there, that you can actually, on the same basis, interact with that as well. At the moment, a landlord is well in his or her rights to not rent to men, or not rent to women if they want to do that, or not rent to 2 men or 2 women. Should Bill 4 succeed, they will lose that right.
No, because it's a private right. What is being discussed in Article 26, and I'm going back, it's state action. That means that the government of the Bahamas and public places will not be allowed to, just as they are now, say, we're not going to rent to someone because they're from Andros or from Bimini. That is government action. That means the Commonwealth of the Bahamas as a government and as a nation cannot discriminate against persons on these 4 bases. Individuals, you and I and everyone else in here, we still have that full private right. We can be as discriminatory, and like I said before, unfortunately, we could be racist, sexist, every kind of misogynist or ist if this passes, because it does not affect your personal, private life. It is a reference to state action, meaning that the government of the Bahamas and the Parliament of the Bahamas cannot nationally recognize a difference between men and women. And that's exactly what the bottom line is.
Okay, we have to move on. In essence of time, so many things to discuss. You'd have to put it down as your one question, Pastor Moss. Sorry about that. But moving on, let's focus our attention on our iRep Christ news reporters. So over the past weeks, we've had many interviews by our lovely iRep Christ news reporters, Shante Major and Gia Marshall, and they will come up now and talk about their interviews, give a few questions from the interviews. But firstly, we'll look at the screen to see some of the interviews that they were on.
And we're here with iRep Christ News to find out what young people like us in their 20s and 30s think about the upcoming referendum. You ready? Let's go. Okay, so are you aware of the referendum that is going on, and what is your perception on it?
I am aware of the referendum. My perception on it is that it is needed in terms of having the public have an actual say in what's going on in the nation. Yeah.
Are you aware of all 4 of the bills, or are there any questions on any of them?
Well, I'm informed on pretty much all 4 bills. In terms of, well, we know the big debate is on bill number 4. I feel like it's a good debate that we're having between the yes and the no's. And I feel like it can continue, hopefully it can continue and be constructive throughout until the referendum is.
Okay. So you seem pretty aware of what's going on. Are you planning on voting?
Yes, I plan on voting.
Have you registered as yet to vote?
Not as yet. I hope to go to hopefully more marathon, where it's close to where I work, on Monday, just so I can get registered and have all that sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think by any chance that there is more that you can still learn on the bills?
Oh, definitely. I feel like both sides have a lot to say in terms of what is actually being said in all four of the bills. So there's never a time to not learn about the bills. So there's always some more that we can learn about.
That's a great answer. Do you have a question that you feel would alter or really enhance your vote?
A question that I have that'll alter my vote.
Yeah. Alter or enhance?
I feel like just to make it more clear for the nation is to, I don't know, would they be probably number 4, would they be able to just change the wording so that everybody be on the same page? Because I feel like everybody, well, it is that everybody is divided just based on the wording alone on bill number 4. So I feel like if you could just take some time to go back and just change it and just make it clearer.
Okay, do you think that is an issue? Sorry. Do you think that is an issue among youth and understanding the referendum that's going on?
I don't think that's the main issue with the youth. I feel like the issue with the youth is just being informed of what the bills are saying overall, not based off the wording of the bill. It's just based off knowing what the bills are first and foremost. So once we can educate the youth on what the bills are, then we can get into how the wording affects their decision.
Okay, and so do you feel as though if this is passed, does it affect you personally?
Me personally, no. Future-wise, yes. I guess it can affect me because based off my children and who, once they are born, like what type of nation they'll be stepping into. I feel like yes, but right now, me personally, not as much. But for the future, I would like to see it develop for my kids and kids' kids and so on.
Your generation.
Right.
Okay.
President Shante. Shante.
Hi, I'm Shante.
Hello, I'm Tia.
So we just did about 15 interviews with random young people between the ages of 20 30, 20s and 30s, to see what the general youth of the country had to say about the referendum. We wanted to know what people our age had to ask, what they had to say about it. So we actually have a list of questions that we compiled from them, because we don't have time to show all of them, to ask our panelists. So we'll just sit right over here so that we won't be in your way. The first question we have is, why do you feel the general public, especially young people, are so confused about this referendum? Either side can take it.
Well, I guess I'll jump in. I have the mic in my hand. I think because there are a lot of distractions and a lot of different voices in the marketplace that, in my view, cause more confusion, and without really analyzing the bills from any real academic basis or any, other than of course Pastor Moss, who always is eloquent and explains his position. But for the most part, a lot of opposition is not coming from an analytical basis, and I think that is what is causing a lot of confusion in the marketplace. Various voices that are emotive and that tend to increase fear and anxiety. I think that's one of the reasons there is a lot of confusion, personally.
I would think the confusion is that persons don't understand the Constitution. They don't understand what is being put to them. So how can you ask me to vote on something when I do not understand the foundation to which you're asking me to vote upon? I think the Constitution hasn't been taught to the general populace in its whole entirety. I mean, children going to school do not know the Constitution. I mean, when I grew up, I knew more American history than I knew of my Constitution. I learned my Constitution when I became an attorney. And I think that is the confusion of the general public. They do not know what they've been asked to vote on.
If I could just piggyback on that 1 minute, though, the Constitutional Commission has been educating on this topic specifically for 2 years. But everywhere I go, I mean, I remind people we've been on this one topic now for 16 years. So I know I accept that there may not be a full level of understanding, but to say that we've been talking about this for 16 years, and in thrust, this Constitutional Commission the last 3 years has been educating persons throughout the entire Bahamas. So, I mean, I take the point that from school age we may not know the Constitution. Yeah, I agree with that. But on this particular exercise, I mean, I think we've been at this now for years.
If I may just quickly say, I think that the Constitutional Commission has been educating, but in my view, they've been educating for a yes vote. And what I would say is that the 3 citizenship bills are pretty clear. People understand them, and I think people will apply their philosophy of citizenship to those bills. Bill 4 is more confusing, but the lawyers are differing on this. Former judges are differing on this. So we should not be surprised that those people you talk to have confusion. The lawyers, I mean, you have one lawyer saying there's provision in the Constitution now for same-sex marriage, another one comes and says, well, that's not true, and they're back and forth on it. So we should give some slack to those people for not understanding it.
Yeah, please, just one final response on that. The Bill number 4 and the opposition to Bill number 4 and the legal minds who have come out with opposing views with respect to number 4 really have not based those arguments from an academic opposition to the bill itself. So there's no opposition to the structure of the bill or the wording of the bill. The issue is whether or not, like you said, does it open the door to same-sex marriage or not?
Thanks.
While you're switching mics, I think you noticed that Ms. Hunt just set herself up as the standard to determine who is academic and non-academic.
Okay, I believe you touched on the question that we're about to ask now, Mr. Moss, which was the confusion based on Bill 4. Now, we've had a lot of concern with our interviewees. We really want to ask, why is the wording of Bill 4 so confusing and vague, in the words of our interviewees?
Okay, I would not say that the wording of Bill 4 is vague. I think the wording of Bill 4 is clear, but the meaning could be varied. I think the fundamental issue with Bill 4 has to do with the Commission's own report. In the Commission's report, the way we got to Bill 4 is by Recommendation 24. But Recommendation 24 was not recommended alone. There was a corollary with it, which is Recommendation 25. And here's what the Commission says in their own report. And the heading of this is Restriction to Guard Against Same-Sex Marriage. This is what they said. We didn't inject the same-sex discussion into the discussion that Ms. Hunt is alluding to. The Commission did. And this is what they say at paragraph 15.63. Reverting to the issue of same-sex marriage, it is recommended that an additional subparagraph be added to 26.4 along the following lines. I quote, Paragraph 1 of this article shall not apply to any law so far as that law makes provisions for prohibiting same-sex marriage or rendering the same void or unlawful. They explain why they put this there. The effect of this would be to preclude any constitutional challenges to such a law based on an alleged discrimination on the grounds of sex, and makes the position clear that same-sex marriages are not permitted under our Constitution and current laws. The government rejected that. And that is a big concern for us because Had they put that in, perhaps Bill 4 would have been the most supported bill, not the most opposed bill.
Just 2 points on that. Is this the same constitutional commission that's biased towards a yes vote? And the second point
Remember, this is the educational arm. The educational arm that morphed, the Constitutional Commission morphed into an educational arm. This is when they were just the Constitutional Commission.
Second point on that, in the Caribbean and globally, if you'd like to, how many countries in our immediate area that have already included the word sex to the Constitution have legalized same-sex marriage?
If you're asking me,
Zero.
I know none.
Zero. None.
For the sake of time, I think these two questions, the next two questions, are pretty similar. So, is it an opinion poll, or is it a binding referendum? And can the government change the outcome of this referendum in any way after the votes are in? Can we get an opinion from a lawyer?
Well, it is not an opinion poll. This is a constitutional referendum that's being done, and it is binding. The vote of the people has to bind the government, and there is no room in a constitutional referendum for the government to change its mind or enact anything different, change the view of the people. It is absolutely 100% binding. There is something in the Bahamas that exists called a referendum, but it's not a constitutional referendum. What we're dealing with now is a constitutional referendum, and the government has to be bound by the result.
That is correct.
I would add this, though the government can't do anything with the effect of Bill 4, if that fails, the government is able to use Article 13 to bring about the same effect, though it will not be constitutional, it will be legislative. They can bring about the result of Bills 1, 2, and 3. I would say, though, they would be unwise to do so. They've given this now to the Bahamian people. If they go back and try to use Article 13 to bring the results about in Bills 1, 2, and 3, it will be the same thing that Mr. Christie did with the gambling referendum.
Well, just on that point, though, it is totally different in effect, because whatever the people say with respect to this Constitution means the Constitution itself will not be changed. We never disagreed from day one that Parliament had authority and power to implement ordinary acts of legislation. They can do that today. Then when the government changes tomorrow, it can be repealed and it can be changed. When the Prime Minister wakes up on the other side of the bed, ordinary legislation can change. So yes, that is true. But the point is, this is a constitutional exercise, and so just because there is a view that ordinary legislation can be implemented to achieve these what we're trying to achieve in 1, 2, and 3, it does not take it into the supreme law, which is the Constitution. So now we have an opportunity. This is our second opportunity in the country to put our input with respect to a constitutional referendum, and it will put it at its highest level, which is the Constitution, and not the ordinary legislation that can be changed depending on what mood the Prime Minister of the day and his Parliament or her Parliament are in.
I like the her.
Yeah. Me too.
You too, Cheryl, right?
Can I ask we have one more question. Can the terminology of what a male or female means be altered, legally speaking?
Male and female has taken sex, in terms of male and female, has taken different orientation. You have seen the global stage in America, Europe, where transgender have altered from male to female. So when you look at that, in my view, I think it can. You have persons doing deed polls. John is not John anymore. He's put it out that he is Jane. So in my view, yes, that's my opinion.
Michael Barnett disagrees. I'm not a lawyer, but Michael Barnett disagrees. He says that in the country, your gender is decided on your birth certificate. That's it. It's there.
Also,
audience, save your questions,
male,
please. Be respectful.
Right. In male and female in this country, okay, is determined at birth. It is determined by what is on your birth certificate, but, well, even, let me go even further than that though. What you are physiologically and scientifically is what you are at birth. The law recognizes a male as XX. Sorry, XY. Yeah. I got the X up. I got the X. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Okay, so my slip of the X's still does not change the fact that biologically you are either one or the other. Now, if the question was, can the word sex be interpreted in different ways? Yeah. But a male is X what? Y. And a female is XX. And so that can't be, in my view, changed.
Thank you very much.
Do I get to quickly respond? If I may quickly respond, Mr. Cartwright quoted Sir Michael Barnett. Here's what Sir Michael Barnett said on the 15th of February 2013. He said that it is only a matter of time when the courts of the Bahamas will address the issue of same-sex marriage. I have no doubt that in deciding the issue, we will have respect to the decisions that emanate not only from Commonwealth countries like Canada and Australia, but also from decisions in the courts of the United States of America. I read that to say in the United States of America, male and female are being interpreted very differently from the way we are interpreting it. So we cannot rely simply on the way we interpret it, because Michael Barnett says when the courts begin to consider it, they'll look to the U.S.
That's after sexual orientation is added to their constitution, not sex. And he also says, do not misconstrue my comments, said back then in the same speaking.
There's a case, I have it here, I don't have time to refer to it, but this, in Pepperdine University, there's this case, these two homosexual ladies sued the university because they were discriminated against. And the university's defense was, no, that's sexual orientation. The judge said this. The judge said, the reason you cannot draw a line between sex and sexual orientation is there is none. That's where we'll be looking for interpretation.
Right, but that's not in the Bahamas.
He said we'll look there.
Mr. Moss, for the sake of time, we have to move on. Thank you, Chia and Shante, for your questions. And we also have, this next part is a very exciting part, because we want to get questions from the audience. We see you guys are really, really excited to ask questions. You see you guys are really excited to ask questions. And so we're going to get, the sake of time. Oh, okay. Okay. Right before we ask the audience, we want to show another interview, and then we're going to jump right into it.
Hi, I'm Shante. Hi, I'm Gia. And we're here with iRep Christ News to find out what young people like us in their 20s and 30s think about the upcoming referendum. You ready? Let's go. My first question is, how much do you guys know about the referendum?
In a general sense, I know a bit about each and every bill that is being presented to the public. So I would say I have a well-rounded understanding of the bills.
Yeah, same thing. I would say I probably know about 80% of all of the bills, what's going on.
Okay, so are you registered? Do you know where to register?
Yeah, I registered this week.
I'm about to register at Small at Marathon.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think the referendum is to you personally?
This is my country, so I'd say it's a 10.
My future is in the Bahamas, and it's a 10 like my friend Kenton said.
Okay. So is there anything that's unclear about the bills? Is there any questions that you would ask to bring clarity to the matter?
Well, it's not that it's unclear to me, but I just wish that they would make the Ford bill even more transparent, I would say, because I understand that a lot of people, they do like to muddy the water, but the Ford bill is where I pick my fight.
Okay.
Yeah, my thing is, I know that there's a campaign pushed by the government for a yes vote, and I would say that the why